Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mohan. Did you have some lunch? The lunch was very, very tasty. I want to convey this message to Taj Hospitality that they did serve a very nice lunch. And there will be tea very soon after outside. If you are feeling sleepy, you can go grab a cuppa and come back in. But it is time now that we start with our third panel of the day. We are keeping with time, so that's a good thing. And we have a brilliant lineup for the next two panels as well. The third panel is about industry boundaries reshaping. Oh, by the way, I also wanted to mention that just before we went on the break, we said we were in the top 20 on Twitter today, trending, SBAC. Now we are at number 5. So please keep up the tweeting. If you are still tweeting, do a little bit more of it. Thank you. So startups and newer companies are seen as hotbeds of innovation. New ideas spring from entrepreneur-led enterprises, and they are quick at the uptake of technology, we know. Are they ready for participating in the next billion-dollar growth market? So I will invite our friend and advisor for SBAC, Mr. Vivek Sunder first, who is a moderator for this panel. He is leading Swiggy's business operations as the COO. Before that, he has worked with P&G in East Africa. He's worked with P&G for over 20 years in various capacities. In Swiggy, he has led the effort to scale the company across cities, and he's also leading the restructure for faster and better decisions. Next up, Harish Narayanan. He is an award-winning marketer who loves technology and all things internet and growing brands that help to change the world via creative storytelling. He is the CMO at Myntra, Jabong, where he leads marketing and monetization. Before that, he was with YouTube in APAC, and before that, at P&G. Nikhil Arora is our next panelist. He's responsible for leading GoDaddy's India business, constantly working towards identifying new growth strategies for small businesses in the country. He has taken this GoDaddy, which is the world's largest internet domain registrar and web hosting company, to new summits since he joined. He's himself a recent recipient of the Economic Times Most Promising Business Leaders of Asia 2019 award. Nishchay AG from Bounce. He's the Director of Monetization and Supply Chain at Bounce, which is India's first smart mobility solution. I asked him to explain to us what exactly Bounce is. He will talk to you more about it. He's patented the tech differentiator, the keyless technology that they use in their motorcycle, and he's got the patent for that. He's an IT whiz, right? Next, and last but not the least, Mr. Pulkit Trivedi. He's the Director of Strategic Partnerships for Google Pay in India, with 20 years of industry experience across Google, Facebook, Intel, Microsoft in diverse business roles. So needless to say that Pulkit has also featured in the list of 40 under 40 in 2015 in the Business Today list. So welcome everyone, and I will let Vivek take it up from here. Thank you, Vivek.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here. Yes, last night I was telling my daughter, who was telling her something about listening to me, and she was not looking at me. So I said, look, when I speak to you, please look at me. And the exact thing which I'm not doing is looking at you, but that's just because I was here last time. This is a photo that SPJIMR has taken from the last panel, so I guess I was looking on the side when they took this panel. We have the graveyard shift, or whatever is the equivalent of the graveyard shift, which is the period just after lunch, which means that we have to be even more provocative than Gopal was. So I'll try my best to try to provoke people who are actually friends. It's a bit dangerous to provoke people. At least 2 of these gentlemen have done business with. Bounce their co-founder shares my name, so it's hard to not know him in Bangalore. So Bounce is a great company. I really have respect for what it's done in such a short time. So I'm sure we'll enjoy that. Since we've heard all these dystopian views of data and what it can do, and we're feeling a bit scared, let me give you the data that I gave yesterday to a company because it asked me for my very personal data, and I gave it willingly. And this was a headset company that basically said, look, we'd like to make sure that the sound we provide to you is great, so can you give us a picture of your 2 years? So I said, how hard can it be? How dangerous can it be for somebody in the cloud to have a picture of my 2 years? So I gave it, right? And after that, they pinged me with information that says, has the sound become better? So I did write to them saying, look, smart try, but this is a complete placebo effect. There has made no difference to the quality of my listening. So now can you please delete the data that I've sent you, is what I did last night. The other reason why I'm relatively chilled out today, Friday is normally a big day for Swiggy. Obviously, we worry about things on a weekly, daily, hourly basis. I was just telling Renuka that today is going to be fine because there is no physical way that this match tonight is going to be as bad as the first one in Mumbai, right? And I kid you not, there are two people from Swiggy, I can't see them in the crowd, but they must also be chilling because when the match is bad and people start turning off TVs and mobiles and stuff like that, essentially you get a drop in orders, right? And now you've sort of gotten all the delivery fleet motivated and gotten them to be there. There's orders, there's demand, supply, everything has been done. Suddenly the bloody match is a joke. You suddenly see that you're wasting a lot of time, energy, money. So today, hopefully, A, it's a Friday, and B, the match can't be as bad as the last one. So we should be fine. The orders will come in. So I know the head of the West region is here somewhere. So I'm guessing that's part of the reason why I think he's here too. Otherwise, he wouldn't be here. So that tells you the life that we lead. I just want to maybe take 60 seconds to explain industry boundaries reshaping from a Swiggy perspective. But honestly, today is about the panel and talking about their experiences there. So let me give you a sort of a perspective on that. Theoretically, Swiggy in its original form is sort of a hyperlocal DHL Blue Dart because it does deliveries. But it's also a Taj Sats because it actually has kitchens. It's now also a Kirana store because you can buy Kirana. And it's also a task. You can basically send stuff from place to place because we now have Swiggy Go, which can be used to send pieces from place A to place B. Most people are sending keys, and I'm just literally wondering, saying before Swiggy Go existed, what were they doing? I mean, I can understand sending chargers, which is the second most sent item, but keys, like what were you doing before Go existed? But that's the second most sent item from place A to place B, from home to office or office to home. So the reality is we've expanded what we originally stood for, and the reason we have expanded is because we have never defined ourselves as a food delivery company. We've said we are in the convenience business. We have three strengths, essentially technology, consumer understanding, and operations, because there's obviously 300,000 plus fleet that have to be managed, and that's heavy operations. So anything that works at the intersection of these three is a space we will be in, some today, some tomorrow, some the day after, and therefore any boundaries that we cross as a result of basically taking this sort of three things together is a boundary we have no problem crossing. That just tells you that we don't actually think about ourselves as a food delivery company, so the data we buy is really about what consumers are doing, not necessarily about how much food they're eating. That would narrow us down to just looking at food. And I'm sure my panel has more such thought processes on how technology makes it easier for you to blur the traditional industrial boundaries. But I do think that there are some watch-outs, and I'm sure the panel will talk to us about that. So what I'd like to do is maybe start by having each of us talk a little bit about your experience of industry boundaries and how you've helped blur it from your own perspective. That could be from your current company or before. And then we can get into questions. We will definitely have 20 minutes based on the time available for Q&A, so please hold on for Q&A. So if you can start with Harish.
Sure. Can you all hear me? Fine? Yes? How's everyone doing?
Lunch, man. Post-lunch.
So, like Vivek kindly introduced, so I'm the CMO for Myntra. I also handle the monetization business. I'll predominantly talk about Myntra because that is fresh off mind, but I can also talk about my past experiences. How many of you know what Myntra started as? The first 3 years of Myntra's existence from 2007 to 2010, what did Myntra sell? Okay, I'm hearing fashion. What else? Sorry, louder please. Yeah, so that's the right answer. So Myntra was born as a company to sell customized gifts. T-shirts, mugs, they even tried bags. We had the fortune of hearing from Mukesh, our founder, 2 weeks ago. And he mentioned how there was some new law that was passed back in 2008, and they wanted to make a big deal and make some media noise, and they Myntra made T-shirts against that particular law, and stood in the middle of Bangalore's MG Road and Church Street and protested and got media attention. Their entire business model was about personalization and about selling t-shirts and mugs for 3 years. It did not take off. And then when he visited the malls of Pune and Bangalore and Delhi and Hyderabad to see, where can they put up stalls to sell this, he noticed a very peculiar thing, which was every mall is full of shops that sell fashion. So there are a couple of stores that sell non-fashion, but mostly it is shoes, bags, accessories, apparel, footwear. I was like, what is this thing? Why are so many shops just empty? And it would be wonderful if I could bring all this inventory online and make it accessible to everyone. And in 2010 is when the pivot happened, and that's when Myntra became a fashion powerhouse, and then automatically money flowed and everything flowed. So that, I would say, is if the team did not have the vision to do something else, Myntra would not exist today. So the point I'm trying to make is, Mukesh was very confident about a few things. He was extremely confident about the team, he was extremely confident about the tech, and he was extremely confident about understanding user needs. And these three things are true in Myntra even today. And whatever we can do based on these three strengths, Myntra will always succeed. So like I mentioned, I handle the monetization business, which is helping other brands and partners succeed on Myntra by putting their ads on Myntra. It's a fantastic business for us, and it's growing tremendously well, just because it ties back to these three principles. Myntra also runs its own brands. We have a house of about 20 plus brands. I don't know if you're aware. So Roadster is a Myntra brand, HRX is a Myntra brand, House of Patodi, Anook, these are all brands that Myntra created. And these are now going international. These make up for more than a big percentage of our business. So again, if we had the strength, these three strengths, when you add them back to what we can do and how we can expand, these opportunities are self-evident. So that's Myntra's story in a nutshell, and how we have been expanding to not just what we started with, but what we can do at a much broader scale, and still stay true to our strengths and what we stand for.
Cool, thanks. Well, I mean, the stories of pivoting are old. Nokia was a Finnish rubber boots company. Correct. Before it pivoted into mobile. So
actually, I want to make one point there before we move on to Nikhil, sorry. The word pivot, if you look at the terminology where it comes from, right? So it comes from, say, exercise or martial arts, where you keep one foot steady and then you move the other foot. If you move both foot, that's called jumping. It's not called pivoting. And for you to pivot, you have to keep one foot extremely firmly on the ground that you stood, and then you move the other foot and change direction. So I think that is pretty much the analogy or metaphor I usually use when we talk about pivoting.
Cool. Good. Thanks. First of all, this is a great forum. Thank you, SPJIMR School, for putting this together. I think the biggest delight for me personally was that when you end up meeting your schoolmate who was the most brilliant guy in your school, I ended up meeting him here. So it's the most joyful moment for me to be here. I represent GoDaddy. Hopefully all of you know GoDaddy. If you don't, please go and look up us. We are the world's largest small business platform. We have over 18 million customers worldwide. And we've been true to our customer segment since we were founded. And I'll just get into a little bit of four key things which we have followed to how to kind of manage this industry versus going beyond your core analogy, right? The first one is being very purpose-driven company. I think I don't know how many of you know a difference between a missionary and a mercenary in a business sense. You can always be a mercenary if you're a missionary, but if you're a mercenary, you can never be a missionary. Essentially, which means that if you wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to make as much money as I can, which is a mercenary, some way or the other, you will lose your focus as a company. But if you're a missionary, which means you understand the problem and the purpose you exist for, I think it always help you stay, to your core and to your, kind of the target customer. So having a purpose is the first important pillar. Second is knowing your product well and where you can extend into. So for example, for us at GoDaddy, we started, and till today we are a domains company. But what we looked at when in the market for the same customer, what can we extend to, right? We could extend to websites, we could extend to email, we could extend to SSL products, we can extend to some productivity products. But what we could not extend to is things like financial services. Now today, if you look at a small business entrepreneur, we can say, oh yeah, we could be a payroll provider to the customer, we could be a financial service provider to a customer, we could be some other operational administrative provider, but we did not, and we know that we are not able to extend our capabilities not only from a product perspective, but also from a go-to-market perspective, because you got to know that can you sell to the same customer with the same trust. Because tomorrow, if I'm going to try to sell a banking loan to a customer, I easily can because I talk to them. What trust would they have in me to say, come, I'm going to offer you a loan and take a loan with us and stay with us, right? So knowing both your product and your go-to-market capability and the trust you have with the customers, right? And lastly, I think your kind of organizational strength of what you exist for, right? So if you have your space defined, not by industry verticals, but your expertise. I think we define more by customer audience. So today we define independents, which are entrepreneurs, as one of our audiences. And entrepreneurs are any form of structure. They could be individual entrepreneur, they could be small business, but for us, likely the sweet spot is less than 20 employees. We do serve enterprises, right? Every big company has a domain, but that's not our core kind of market. That just becomes a market. But our focus, our go-to-market is always on that core. And then secondly, also making sure that you're not focusing on your messaging on industries, but more customer problems. So again, for us, it's always been what customer problem are we trying to solve and what core capabilities from a product and marketing we can extend to. So for us, GoDaddy has always been like, yeah, it's the front end, it's domains, it's websites, email, a little bit other things that surround us, but not going beyond that because we know our marketing capabilities or our product capabilities will not succeed.
Cool. Nishchay? Yeah, I guess you would be the youngest company out here. Would that be fair to say that?
Yeah, we are pretty young when it comes to other companies sitting here. I think it's better I tell what Bounce is about. Bounce is a dockless scooter sharing platform. We enable people to move from point A to point B. The entire solution is automated. The way it works is you open our app, look at the closest scooter, you book it, you walk up to that, you unlock the scooter from your app, and then you can ride wherever you want to go. Once you reach your destination, you just end the trip on the phone, and you'll be charged for the time and distance, and the scooter becomes available from that location for the next consumer. It's been 18 months since we started doing this business. We have been rated as the fastest growing mobility startup in the world. We are clocking about 150,000 rides a day. We have served more than 2.8 million consumers in last 18 months. Before this, when you say crossing the boundaries and all those things, before we started Bounce, we were a premium and luxury motorcycle rental company. We were the first of its kind. We were renting out Harley Davidsons, Ducatis, Triumphs, and all those things. And we always saw that there is an opportunity in the commute market. We approached a lot of VCs, HNIs, and everyone to sell this dream, to tell that we will build this. And there was a lot of failure stories from all over the world, from Ofo to Mobikes to everyone. They thought putting an unsupervised asset on an Indian road will be the most stupidest thing that you can ever do. But luckily for us, it worked out in a lot of ways. There is a lot of community building happening. A lot of tech has evolved. The first thing, for external world, we are just a scooter sharing platform. But back in the office, what we do is we build a lot of tech to enable this solution to work. We are everything from an automobile company. For example, we build a lot of electronics to control the scooter remotely. We build a lot of electromechanical solutions to lock the scooters, to secure the assets remotely. We have problems from across the industries. We have problems what Uber and Ola face, which is just an app. We have problems what a company like Ather will face to design hardware, to design electronics, to manufacture them, to manage the supply chain. We have all the problems that a company like Swiggy will have, where to manage the workforce to make sure that assets are up and running, available for the consumers. So we had to build and learn a lot of things. So we had to cross a lot of boundaries. Sooner or later, each one will become very strong, and we slowly start catering to other industries, other market areas. The recent example is, we believe that EV is the future, and there is no reliable vehicle at an affordable cost which can be ready for fleet or ride sharing. So we put in a lot of energy, effort to build EVs in-house. That's where we believe that you can cross the boundaries as long as it is within your the final services that you're offering. For example, for Myntra, it was going and manufacturing or designing and selling their own brands. For us, it's all about building our own supply chain in terms of going as far as manufacturing our own scooters. And going forward is to build a swapping infrastructure where we enable the sustenance of the EV fleet. And once we build this infrastructure, we can open up this to the entire market, not limit to ourselves. So the opportunities are endless. The only thing is what is at stake. And for us, what is at stake is survival. We have to survive at any cost and make sure that we are profitable. For many people, they think that maybe something is doing good, that's why they are venturing into one more thing. For us, it's like I have to venture to this, make sure that this survives. So the stories are different, but you end up crossing the boundaries very often.
That's the pivot that he talked about. Actually, there's an interesting one which I haven't spoken to you, Nishchay. But did you know that there could be a situation where we compete with each other, talking about blurring boundaries?
We clearly know.
That's what you think. Let me give you a real example. So we started Go, which is a service where you can basically call somebody and say, hey, here's my pen, I want you to send it to my cousin on the other end of town, right? Yes. And that's what it's used for. But about 2 weeks ago, about a month ago, somebody called the Swiggy rider to send something, and the rider said, "Dijiye packet." So he said, "Packet main hu." The guy was finding no bounce, no taxis, nothing. Everything was off. So he decided to call Swiggy and transport himself from place A to place B. Okay, and of course, very quickly we shut it down, saying, "Boss, no, we don't want liabilities," because it was an unintended consequence. So we are competing with you. You just didn't know that.
We are exploring the same, and we were exploring the same thing. It's like, anyway, I know that a guy is going from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Why don't I ask him to do something else around that, so that I can subsidize his ride?
Good try. So you know, on the side when you told me that you'd like the Swiggy riders to use bounce bikes, that comment of yours has made me not want to talk to you after this one. Just tells you how this thing, yeah, exactly, talk about boundaries. Thank you. Pulkit?
Yeah, sure. I think, I'm sure our technology touches all of you in very meaningful ways every single day. But there is one thing about Google and the fact that it has stayed true to its mission, which is making the world's information truly accessible and available. That is the reason why Google functions. It doesn't really focus on the how part. The why part is the integral formation of why. For the last so many years, Google has tried to innovate in many different ways. But here's the thing, I think, if you look at how the world has changed, and I used to work for a company called Intel, still exists. There was this time in the mid-2000 when the world was pivoting from the world of desktop to mobile. And there were very few companies who realized this shift. And Google was one of them to basically take a very, very fundamental call, and I'll use the word affirmatively, which is pivot. Pivot to building products for a mobile-first world. And it's not easy for a company which operates in 150 plus countries to look at some of the developing countries or emerging economies where, let's say for India, who missed completely the desktop wave and became a mobile-first internet economy, and take a conscious call that I'm going to build specifically for India. So it was in 2011-12 when we took a bold decision to say that, look, we will launch a very affordable smartphone, a sub $100 price point smartphone in India, Android based, and make sure that smartphone becomes ubiquitous. And today as we speak, if you read some reports, mobile actually will form 50% of monetization on the internet access for more than 75% of the countries around the world. So our pivot was really building products for the mobile first economy. And as Google Pay, I think if you really think about what payments in India could potentially do, it has the power or the potential to change the economic landscape of this country, a country which has so many people unbanked, who have never probably been in the formal side of the economy because they did not have access to formal banking. I think digital payments is truly disrupting that space, where today one of our helps in our household boldly has a Google Pay app and insists that we transfer her salary through the mobile phone account, because she's assured that this money is going to stay safe in her bank account. So our mission now in the payment space is, it is about people's money. And if anything you care about, apart from your good health, is your money. So we really care about making your money safe, secure, and reliable while you are transacting money on the smartphone.
Makes sense. It's interesting because I'll tell you my first experience with the sort of next billion user experience. I was in a parking lot, and it was not in a metro city. It was actually in a tier 3 town. And I didn't have change at that point of time, and I said, "Aapke paas koi payment instrument hoga?" And I just rattled out all the names. I mean, obviously we do business with all of them. I rattled them all out just to be safe in alphabetical order. Okay, so GPay came in the middle, and he says, "Sir, Google hai," right? And I said, "Theek hai." Then I paid him, and then after I paid him, I asked him a question. "Aapne Google hi kyun rakha?" And I think I told you this when we met. He said, "Sir, is pe mere ko vishwas hai." And he said this in the vernacular. This is in Tamil Nadu, so he was speaking in Tamil. And I was like, man, this is a town that is going to be, in our list, it's number 350th in our list of 500 towns that Swiggy is in. I was just there on a trip, and the guy is saying this to me in town number 350 in a random parking lot outside a temple. And I was stunned with that statement, that trust hai. He's probably maybe used Google, maybe he's not used Google, but something about the ad or whoever is, actually what he told me was his friend told him, use that, it is safe. And so it was word of mouth, not digital advertising, that had caused that to happen. But talking of blurring boundaries, I actually asked him, I said, "Google pata aur kya kya karta hai?" And he didn't know that, right?
Hard problem to solve now.
Yeah, exactly. So now he'll have to, actually I don't think, I think it's an amazing story because he did not know what was Google's original sort of purpose. Cool. So what I thought we'll do is, see, this concept, and there are some business school students here, many alumni here, and I'm sure all of them have read about the famous stick to your knitting, don't go outside your core, all of those mantras that have been probably still taught. So I thought what I'll do is to say that, is that concept of stick to your knitting obsolete in today's world of technology blurring boundaries, or it is now a nuanced thought, which is to say, stick to your core is still relevant, but here are the guardrails, or here are the conditions under which you can blur the boundaries and go, and under some circumstances you'll be successful, and some others you'll absolutely fail. So it'll be good to get your perspective, including failures that you may have seen or experienced yourself, on what is the magic sauce of blurring the industry boundary, how far can you go, and is there a magic sauce to that? Yeah, so we don't have to go this way. Anybody wants to talk about it? Nikhil, do you want to just?
Sure. I think it's more relevant than ever in the past.
Right.
But the definitions are different, right? I think because what technology has done is it's free for all, right? I can go, as I was mentioning earlier, today, if you look at a customer journey line, I can serve every point if I want to as a company, because it's, it's just one customer who's doing all these things.
Right.
But what's happened is, like giving an example, right? Co-working companies going into hospitality company going into co-working. And, you have to recognize, you talk about trust, right? I mean, I think whether the original example of Google was because of the original Google mission or not, but because it was a trust. So does the consumer recognize you because of trust, right? If he doesn't have a trust, you're just setting up yourself for failure. So I think, I feel like you still need to stick to your core, but wherever you can extend your product and market competency with trust is where you want to experiment it. Otherwise, how do you keep yourself sane, right? Because you're just going to go like, I'm going to just go every possible dollar the customer spends and I'm going to get it.
Makes sense.
So I think if you really see, if you think about a startup today, right? A startup often is thought as a replica of a big business. In my view, actually it is not the case, because if you think about the successful startups, they are never in the realm of an established business model. What they are doing actually is trying to create disruption in an existing business model. And there are many examples of this. While a big company is actually, has done a fabulous job of executing. So if you think about this piece in two ways, execution versus discovery. Execution is like you optimize for the current business value chain and you keep doing it better and better and you become bigger and bigger. At some point in time, if you don't focus on other things, you may potentially die, which is why if you were to just pick up the list of, let's say, the Fortune 500 companies 50 years back, 9 out of 10 companies don't exist. And here is the discovery part where you are fundamentally questioning the basic premise of the value chain that you are trying to disrupt. A great example is Bounce. You look at ride hailing. Uber, Ola, Bounce, and these companies might have started off with a very simple app which basically gets you a ride. But think about it. No auto company could solve this problem of what they will potentially solve one day, including Swiggy, which is they will solve excess capacity for millions of cars or vehicles around the world. How can you optimize for that excess capacity so that you can basically move around from one place to the other? And more importantly, at the end of the day, this could be a big solve for the world from a logistics or last mile logistics standpoint. So I think in my view, it is about how do you balance between execution and discovery, to be really true. And it's a very hard problem for most companies.
Indeed. Harish, you also...
I have a slightly different point of view.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a huge fan of the book Only the Paranoid Survive by Andy Grove, ex-Intel CEO, right? So I think if one is not paranoid enough, whether you're a startup or a big company, and if you don't disrupt yourself, you will die very soon. That's my very firm belief. And by definition, disrupting yourself will come with experimentation in new things that we were never done before. If we don't try, and maybe it is boundaries of industry, maybe it is boundaries of ways of working, business models, go to market, I firmly believe that there has to be a certain part of your workforce and your budgets and your resources should be focused on doing exactly that. But I also would link it back to what Vivek you were saying earlier, which is I would still stay true to the core. And there's a seemingly there's a dichotomy, right? That how can you stay true to your core and still go and disrupt and experiment? The dichotomy is resolved by understanding what I would define as core. Core for me is the core capabilities, not the core business. So if the capabilities are about tech, if the capabilities about quick product cycles, if the capability is about quick user feedback and iteration, then the disruption can happen in multiple industries. So the core is not about Myntra is all about fashion, or Bounce is only about scooter rentals, or GoDaddy being only about domains. Like the core is about what you stand for as a company and a culture, and that for me defines the scope of disruption more than the industry that we play. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Adding to what
Yeah, go ahead.
That's how it evolved a lot of things for us. For example, we wanted to know who our consumers were, what do they do, why do they use our product, how often do they use, what are they in general, are the students, employed, self-employed, married, with kids, own home, everything. We had a lot of these questions because we wanted to strategize our marketing, we wanted to strategize our retention, repeat, everything. So we went to survey companies, asked them to do surveys, they did some focus group studies and all those things. They came up with answers and we were never convinced with those results. So we thought, we are a tech company, why are we so much struggling? So we simply built a tech feature of survey as a feature, and we rolled out and we started asking one question every day. And we were telling like, you just answer this question after the ride, I give you 3 rupees or 5 rupees off on this trip. So people started answering. So now within a month we had data of about 150,000 people telling us what do they do, what are they. And it gave us a great insight to who our users were. And we thought, now we have built this feature, now we got to know who our users are, what do I do with this feature? We thought, okay, well, let's open it up for all the other companies, all the other brands. So we took this feature to a lot of brands telling that, hey, we have built this feature, do you want to know what it is like? So a lot of FMCG companies are there, and there is no last mile, like L'Oreal, Kavita was telling, there is no last mile for them. And we can be that last mile is what we said. We recently ran a company, a survey for a very famous cookie company. We distributed some 10,000 samples in our scooters. There was a sample in every scooter. So when the next consumer picks up the scooter, we tell him, hey, there is a goodie waiting for you. And he picks up the sample, he experiences the sample, and then at the end of the day, we ask him a simple survey telling that, hey, did you like it? What did you like about this? Where do you often buy this? How much are you ready to pay for this? And this was a great insight for a cookie company which was very unavailable in the past. Like this, we are keep evolving. So core is this, as he said, tech is the core strength, and we'll build everything. It's all about getting the distribution at the cheapest cost, which is my core feature, and then start building more businesses, which gives you higher margin.
Awesome. That's a really interesting insight, because now you're essentially entering into domain of what a Nielsen or a survey company would do. So you're blurring the boundaries between scooter and market research. Did you ask a question on where did they throw the wrapper after that? Just checking, because what would...
No. That's a social responsibility,
yes.
not my responsibility.
No, but I have to credit your company that's how many years old?
We are 18 months into this.
Yeah, so for an 18-month company, full credit, I have to say we haven't done what you did at our 18th month as Swiggy, that we didn't actually have as much, what you're trying to do is get progressive profiling information. Yes. So we do have progressive profiling now in place, but frankly at 18 months we didn't have that system in place. So we knew very little about, we knew everything about their food habits, but we knew very little about anything else about that company at the same time of our sort of journey. So I mean, full credit for you for trying to find out more and more about the company, because I'm sure it'll not just give you monetization ideas, but it'll also help you serve the core
yes.
Much better. So it's amazing to hear that you've done that piece of work and built it in-house, right?
Yes.
Awesome. I have another question which I'm sure is a challenge maybe for you, but also for some of the more larger startups and maybe Google, which is perpetually in startup mode, I guess, which is there are two groups I believe that will see that change and kind of have a reaction to that change. It can be a positive or a negative reaction. One is an employee base, because the employees are so used to doing something, they've gotten used to the sort of core competence work, and they feel they're good at it, they have relationships with the stakeholders, all of that stuff. And suddenly now you're telling them that you've got to do something else, or we've got to do something else. So that group is a group that's likely to react to that change. And the second group is your investor or shareholder base, depending on which company you are, who might say, hang on, why are you going after this unknown thing? Do you really think you can disrupt AC Nielsen, or IMRB? What chances do you have of kind of outcompeting them? So there is likely to be that stress from these two groups. But depending on which group you think you have found some kind of a tip for, or how do we solve this problem of getting the employee motivated towards that change, it'll be great to hear examples of how do you keep the foot on the ground, which is do the core well, but also start picking up a new muscle, as it were. Would you have examples from any of your companies?
So we always believe that 0 to 1 is an art,
right,
and 1 to 10 is science.
Yeah.
We finished our 0 to 1 phase, and we brought in a lot of industry experts from a lot of companies who are sitting here.
Right.
From your company, a lot of guys.
I'm very aware of who you poach, so yeah.
A lot of people came on board. Now they are all about structure. They're all about science. They're all about taking the right feedback at the right time. They bring in a lot of sanity to a lot of chaos that we have around us. But at the same time, when you have to start something new, in a company which is in the 1 to 10 phase, 0 to 1 is again an art. It's all about hustle again to win the trust of everyone, because they have already seen the success. All the 1 to 10 guys are the guys who come from the likes of Amazon or Flipkart or Myntra or Swiggy. They honed their skills doing the right set of things at the right time in a structured manner. Now you are again telling them to do something different, and every time they're like, this is not our core, why are we doing this, why are you asking us to do that? But it's all about getting that first dollar as a revenue. That changes everything. When the whole thing was happening, we had to decouple a couple of things in our entire tech stack to open up the survey as a feature to the outside world. And they're like, no, not this. And we went and cracked a couple of deals, and the kind of revenue that they looked at, oh, this can become really big in the future.
Right.
So again, they bring in their sanity and it helps us.
Right. Thank you.
In that context, I think, Vivek, it's a very pertinent question, and I think every company, big or small, struggles with it. I think everybody focuses on and talks about rather speed and focus. But I think there is one aspect that really differentiates success in this area, and that is mindset. And if you really think what separates, let's say, startups or successful companies from the ones who have failed, it is really the mindset. And when I say mindset, it is about allowing people to fail. It's okay to fail. It's not like you are going to get penalized because you did not do something right. You fail, you learn, you iterate, and you then start doing the right things. And at Google, I can tell you that this is one tenet that the company or the organization has really focused on, which is give some space to all the employees in the company to try out new things, to take risks, and which is why some of you may be familiar. We have a concept called, and Harish, you will be familiar, which is there is this 20% project concept at Google, which is you can basically spend 20% of your time trying to ideate and do new things outside of your core job. And just to share, Gmail was an outcome of a 20% project. And so was Cardboard. If you've used Cardboard, it's a very fascinating, very simple virtual reality product experience. Both these products actually came out of a 20% project. So things become easy when you have money on the side and you can really spend a lot on R&D and try to create or disrupt or build newer models. But I think this thing about culture is applicable to companies big or small in my way, which is to do with the mindset that we are trying to build in whether it's a startup or a large corporation.
I'd love to build on that example. So in my time at Google, I saw it happen in real life, and Google is a very it's in a very fortunate place, right? The pressures you have on, say, the top line or bottom line are far removed from most of the teams. I would like to share an example where we try to apply the same principles in my current job, where even with constraints you can try things and make things happen. So fully agree with the way you put it, which is a mindset, and it's about the risk-taking ability, and it's okay to fail kind of a thing. The way we are trying to operationalize it is, in my team, I tell them pick a project. It's completely okay to not see great results in the first year. We will learn and we will live with it. And just to give an example, so Myntra launched India's, or rather the world's first digital reality show. So we did a thing called the Myntra Fashion Superstar, which was a hunt for the next big fashion influencer. Fully online, voting is happening online. The participants were real people that we got from an Instagram post that we put out. We got 3,000 plus entries. We have never done anything like this. And more importantly, how this will link back to revenue and commerce in the first year is not established. We have no idea, right? But the call that the company took was that we will try it out. We will set aside some test funds for it, and we'll make it happen. And whatever we learn out of this, we will take it to the next year. And that, I would say, has been one of the best learning experiences we have had as a content team across the board. because we've never worked with external partners who make reality shows before, right? We have never worked at influencers at this scale. We could not have learned what we learned about linking views of a content piece to commerce that is happening or growth in brand salience. These kind of learnings wouldn't have happened if we did not go out and test a random idea and make it big. So no matter where in the stage of evolution the company is, I think it is possible to set aside some resource and mind space to experiment and be ready to fail. That's how I put it.
Cool. I think just add on 2 lines to this, right? There's a very famous saying, if everybody's going to think out of the box, there will be nobody left in the box, right? So I think as companies, I think it's very important to have a combination of different employees or stakeholders you hire, risk takers, risk avoiders, conservative people, aggressive people, because ultimately, no matter what stage you are, you will need all those 4 combinations. Otherwise, you're gonna, you won't be able to walk before you start running, kind of stuff, right? I think secondly, I think it's important. You talk about investors, right? I think if you have a very strong belief that there is something you want to extend to, right? Don't be hesitant of changing your investors or stakeholders.
Yeah.
I worked for a company, we went from public to private because the shareholders don't agree. It's the right strategy, so fire the investors, it's fine, right? So I think that's one way to think about, you can always change your investors if you believe in something very strongly.
Yeah. I guess Nishchay was looking very eagerly. He wants to talk to you after this one about how to change the investors. I think so I think we've got about just shy of 15 minutes for questions. I do want to give space to the audience to ask questions that they may have on this topic of blurring boundaries. I think we have somebody right at the back here. If you could introduce yourself so there's context that we have of what you do before. Okay.
Good afternoon, sir. Firstly, I want to thank Swiggy because you guys mean a lot to every hostel student here. Trust me. And secondly, sir,
we have your exam schedules mapped out because we know that at that time night canteen spikes. So scary, but we don't collect the data. You tell us that.
So one thing I want to talk about is with Swiggy, and I have questions for Swiggy, Myntra, and Bounce. So with Swiggy and Myntra in the market, it's really convenient, but one thing which is coming is you've almost have around 4 to 5 lakh delivery executives on the road. And it increases convenience, but to a certain extent, it does increase the pollution to a certain extent. And can we see a future wherein you would be shifting from the conventional fuel bikes to electric vehicles? Maybe that would help Bounce as well.
I mean, that's an easy answer. There is range anxiety today that exists in a lot of electric bikes. So if the ecosystem crosses a threshold of fast turnaround time and so to answer your question, yes, we have some pilots running. It just needs to cross certain thresholds where it starts making sense for these people to use it, because otherwise people won't want to basically hurt their income. These delivery executives won't want to hurt their income or productivity if it's below that. So we are actually working with Bounces going into EV. We are working with folks like Bounce. So I do foresee it coming. It's a short answer to the question.
Thank you.
Same with us.
Driverless cars.
Sorry?
That will take a bit of time to come.
The vision for us is to make cars obsolete.
Driverless cars.
No,
yes.
driverless cars won't be able to ask the Nukkad Panwala whether that will take some time in India. Same answer as Vivek. We are already piloting electric last mile vehicles and second mile vehicles in Myntra. Same answer. So the moment the range and everything makes sense, we'll be able to roll it out at scale.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
I'm Himanshu, doing my PGDM first year from SPJIMR. This question is for Bounce. So we were particularly talking about capabilities of a company. So in these first 18 months, do you think that you're quickly able to define what that capability would be? Because that capability gets established in the first 2 to 3 years. I'm not sure of the timeline, but in that regards. And also when you're talking about exploring into EVs and then reducing down the cost, don't you think that all of the cost lies with the vendor? Because here nothing is in your controls in terms of the EV cost. This is my question.
Sorry, I didn't get the last part.
So the EV cost actually depends, like, is completely independent, dependent on the battery cost, and that completely lies with the vendor of the the LGs and the Panasonics. So going to foray into that, how do you go on to reduce the electric vehicle cost?
No, it all boils down to what is the TCO of the entire solution. When it comes to IC vehicle, there's a regular internal combustion engine vehicles, the moving parts are way too high. The maintenance requirements, the SKUs are much higher. The service cycles are much higher. When it comes to an EV, the number of moving parts is very low. The first thing. Second thing is the cost of running the whole solution. Yes, if we go for a swapping technology, we have to manage a float of battery packs, but again, it increases your availability because now your fleet is not down waiting for it to get charged. And as the scale, as the adoption increases, the cost of all those things do come down. It's all about economies of scale at this point of time. As and more the adoption increases, everything around that solution comes down. The cost of it comes down.
Like the first question was, what was the main core capability that Bounce is actually trying to do?
See, core capabilities of any organization is to identify a problem statement and to go after it and solve it. You have to identify how do I solve it, whether do I solve it through product and tech, or would I solve it through my operational efficiencies, better planning and all those things. So for us, in the initial days, it's all about scale to make sure the solution is reliable, the solution is available all the time to the users, and the supply is to a constant, supply is always there. So in the initial few days, it was all about building tech capabilities to make sure that these things work. Now we are in the second phase where we are trying to make it optimal, in the sense it's very cost effective, make sure the user experience is the best, make sure the retention is higher. These are the solutions that we are working these days.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Chetan, a student of SPJIMR. Before I ask my question, I would like to present my small complaint to Pulkit sir for almost giving me a disappointing Diwali because I couldn't find Rangoli at all.
So sorry about that.
And my question is somewhere related to that, here we see 5 companies who really believe in deep discounting and gifts and rewards. When we talk about business model, innovation and reshaping, is this trend really becoming more common and easier because of the deep discounting trend we see, or is it something deeper that we have in the startup industry?
Could you repeat the second part? I couldn't get the deep discounting.
Is innovating business models getting easier by the day because of the deep discounting trend, or is it more about customer understanding and all that we read in our books here at college?
I think, look, I think it is not an either or answer. To be very fair, I think cashbacks is a reality in the country. The joy of getting ₹5 on a scratch card on Google Pay, to me also is very immense, I can tell you, versus when I get a better luck next time. So people love discounts, people love cashbacks. Consumers will inherently tend to show this behavior. However, we truly believe, and I'm sure everyone sitting here truly believes that convenience at some point in time or experience of buying a product or a service from a particular player will slowly pivot this to a model where, you know, what you are delivering to the end user, the kind of user experience you're delivering, what kind of joy you are creating will tend to differentiate you from others, and that will help you eventually win in this very, very so-called, if you were to call this a very cluttered consumer internet space in India. And I'll give you a classic example. At the end of the day, I mean, if you think about, and thanks to how India has built a India stack on financial services, biometric, integrating the digital payments experience, and then making it interoperable, which means you can pay from one bank to the other. Your identity is your mobile phone space. You don't need any incentive today to make a payment to your friend or your relative or your family. You do that because it's right in your hand, and in 3 clicks, you're fairly sure, whichever app you're using, that my money will go through. I'm assured my money will go through. Similarly, there will be other business models which will see this kind of behavior emerging. And there are many an example of why people are willing to pay extra for convenience or a better service in terms of in their buying journey. So I think cashback will continue to be a reality, but at the end of the day, this will not be the winning formula. The winning formula will be based on something else, which is beyond cashbacks or discounts.
Yeah, and I think I just want to add quickly is, I think, same analogy, but I think what worries me about when you're starting a startup today, right? If deep discounting is what you're basing your entire business model on, you're kind of dead on arrival. Because deep discounting is great because you're trying to get your product discovered and adopted. And as Pulkit was saying, after some time, it's your trust and credibility of that brand which what people will pay premium for. Not, the discounts are already part and parcel of the game, but if that's the only, kind of lever you have for customer to buy the product, then you're not solving the product. You're not solving actually the problem with the right product.
I would actually want to clarify, it's a misconception. So the users in Myntra don't come to Myntra because of discounts. They come to Myntra, the person sitting in a Jabalpur who wants to buy a Levi's trouser or a jeans, and he's not able to find it in 20 miles in his vicinity, the only way he can buy it is at Myntra. So most of our users love Myntra and the experience because of the selection, because of the brands, because of the convenience of being able to sit at home, get it, try it, and then return it without any cost. Discounts comes much later. And if you see the time when we discount heavily, it's during the end of season sale, which the entire industry is at discount. So every year twice, the entire fashion industry is at a huge discount is when we also go heavily on discount. So the primary reason to shop on e-commerce today is still based on the very fundamentals that we are all being taught, you guys are being taught now, which is consumer insight, solving the barrier, making customer delight a priority. These things come first. Discounting is a by the way. And it is necessary when it is necessary. The businesses are never built on discounts.
Let me just, I guess, I have the incredible honor of coming as a teacher to SPJIMR2, maybe not to your class, but one of the things which I find always is that I've found it very useful to throw the question back at the student, and many a time in the Google world they can check it out. Renuka's laughing because I've done that many times in her class. When you say that the industry is deep discounting, give it, if you do it as a percentage, just check your own orders. I'm sure you've ordered in Swiggy. Find out of what percentage of the food price have you actually got as a discount just for yourself. And you'll find that you're actually computing what the discounting is versus reading Economic Times and figuring out that the industry is doing a lot of discounting, right? You'll find it surprisingly low. Over 50% of our users buy the product without applying the coupon. It's zero discounted, okay? That's one. Number two, in the first 2 years, we barely did any discounting. People bought it because we were solving a problem. Nobody likes to go in traffic, right? When there are 4 people that came in the market and one of them was offering ice cream less than the price of water, we are not going to sit there and chill out, right? So that caused the spike a year and a half ago. Thankfully, they're gone. So now we're back to more normal levels. And therefore, the discounting has come down. But the reality is that the discounting, competitiveness, et cetera, as Pulkit mentioned, will wax and wane. But at the core of it, we're solving a problem that consumers are willing to. And the last time I was in SPJIMR, we discussed the type of cuisine that people inside SPJIMR are ordering. I don't want to be on stage and talk about what you're ordering on campus.
This is Maulik Shah from Almazras Consulting. I'm the CEO here. This question is to all the startups. While you guys are solving a great problems that we all face, but at the same time, it comes at a very, very heavy losses over the years. We have seen of late, the startup valuations are crashing. The WeWork is a classic example. And even the SoftBank is being actually alleged as, disrupting or spoiling the market with the, the heavy pockets. How is this scene and the scenario of late shaping up for you? I mean, is there a change in the way financing of the losses is really taking place the unit economics, if someone can talk about it, how the world is changing for the startups, what it was 5 years back and today. And that's one question. There's another second question, which is more on the social side. Nishchay talked about the social responsibilities, especially Swiggy and Bounce. I'm sure you have a significant impact on the social places because you are commuting. Do you have a strategy as one of the core purpose is to actually create an kind of a civic disciplines among the employees, among the people whom you employ, because it's a huge in numbers, including honking or including the way you will just pass through the roads, all of that, because you actually impact. So do you have those strategies just on those two questions?
Yeah. So I can see the time is up, so I don't know, Vinita, who's maintaining a tight ship. Do we answer the question or should I answer him off stage? Okay. So
mentioned WeWork, sorry, it's a touchy.
So you want to cover the
WeWork
one? You take the WeWork one, I'll take the social one. Yeah.
So I built WeWork in Asia, so I'm going to take that question on, right? So I think WeWork, is an example which is cited nowadays in media and all the case studies wonderfully well, right? I think it touches the topic which you're talking about is what is your core competency and what is not, right? So WeWork as a model, co-working as a model is still a model which is here to stay and will continue to stay, right? So it's a problem which is identified and customers like it. It's only about how do you stay to the core? I think with WeWork, it was expanding beyond certain spaces beyond co-working, right? It went into verticals which was perhaps not its core competency or did not have things we talked about, the right employee force or the technology or the product to serve it. Secondly, I think, we talk about valuations, right? Ultimately, what's success? A lot of startups are defining success on valuation, to me, which is a dead on arrival thing, right? What is a sustainable, profitable growth model today? You don't need to be millions and billions in terms of that. You need to be on a path which is profitable, right? I mean, WeWork example, you can look at Uber's IPO. Uber example was cited before by Pulkit. Went into Uber Eats. Is it the right thing or not? You can philosophically debate it, but it was, are you staying to your core competency or not, right? So I think valuation crisis is not a good or bad thing. I wouldn't care about that, right? What you need to care about is how you're defining success of your startup. And I think WeWork went from 10 billion to 47 billion. Somebody valued at 47 billion, good, bad, ugly, that's left to debate. But as a core model, I think it was expanding beyond perhaps its core and also beyond growing a lot faster than perhaps your core competency can handle, right, on the topics we discussed. So I just wanted to make sure that the WeWork perspective is put in place. But the lesson there is, it's not about valuation. It's about, do you have a profitable, sustainable, scalable model? And where do you stick to and where do you don't go to, geographies or, products-wise?
So let me take I guess we've got 20 seconds left. Let me take the one on driver behavior on the street and stuff like that. So say this, at the time when this photograph was taken, which is SBAC 2019, I was asked exactly the same question, right? So clearly the fact that you're asking it again means we've done nothing about it and not succeeded at it. The reality is that we have a force that keeps changing very frequently. Nobody wants to be it's tough, hard work, so it changes often. We do provide training for them in partnership with police departments, in partnership with private and bodies and stuff like that, and there is almost no incentive that is there for a delivery partner to deliver ahead of time, right? So zero incentives if he's delivered faster than he's supposed to deliver. So we try to put this stuff in place, but it's a constant sort of battle and a challenge for us to make sure that they are following orders. We've experimented with technology that says if he doesn't wear a helmet, maybe the bike won't start and stuff like that, but this is a game that we are playing. We will hopefully try to do our best at it in our own way. We can't declare success on it, but we've made some attempts in the last 1 year.
So this is Nitin Ghadiar, adjunct faculty at SPJIMR.
We'll have to take question, Mr. Professor Ghadiar.
Vivek.
Sorry, sir.
Nitin Ghadiar, we've met before, adjunct faculty SPJIMR. Taking further from what you said, and Nishchay as well, one of the boundaries probably you need to kind of transcend is that with the insurance sector. 7 out of 10 fatal road accidents are on two-wheelers. Yeah. And I wonder whether you have backward integration plans or strategic alliance plans with the insurance sector. It's pretty much like Hero into loan finance. Yeah. Now, those are the kind of boundaries that need to be reshaped because they're integral to the business of two-wheelers. And one quick question for you, Harish. Your monetization of Myntra has actually worked very well after demonetization. And in the last couple of years, I think it has taken up sharply. What do you do with the more traditional industries in terms of integrated communication, media, again in terms of partnering to ensure that there is critical mass in the monetization of Myntra? Thank you.
So sir, I do realize this, the paucity of time, but great point. Every one of our drivers is part of an insurance, and we worked with 3 or 4 insurance providers to figure that out and how to provide it on the app itself so they can do micro insurance and provide insurance not just for the ride itself but for all other things in their family like sickness and stuff like that. So all of that is part of this thing. We've got some fantastic partnerships in place.
And I didn't quite catch the connection between monetization and demonetization, but I'll answer your second part of the question. Working with other industries, we actually take a huge pride in the way we engage with different kinds of partners across our supply chain. So we have a partner network called Mensa, which is about using Kirana stores as our last mile distribution centers and actually enabling them to do deliveries on our behalf. So that every time during our peaks, which is our end of season sales, these Kirana stores become our hands and legs like never before. So we have, this is just one example. In our warehouses, we have people with different kinds of disabilities who are part of different stages of our packing process and delivery process as per their capabilities. So we are doing a lot with different types of parts of society. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. And the demonetization thing was deliberate. Your business seems to have done well after that.
It has been doing well before and after. There is no different spike during that time. Just clarifying.
When it comes to bounce, we provide insurance for every ride. And apart from that, we are now working a lot of investing a lot on tech to shape the user behavior. We have a lot of sensors on the vehicle like accelerometer, gyro, and everything, because of which we actually measure how he rides, how hard he accelerates, how hard he brakes, how sharp he turns. We also match it with the Google topography to understand whether was he accelerating when it was very steep or when he was braking really hard when it was very slow. Based on all this data, we started rating the users, and his price depends on the rating. So if you ride really bad, your the price that I show you will be high. If you ride very good, your insurance cost probably will be waived off. At the same time, your prices will be lower.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you very much for your questions.
Yes, I have one question. Sorry, just very
honestly,
yeah.
they've allowed you. Yeah. What special permission did you?
Okay, I have come actually to this conference to ask Swiggy this question. So I'm Mansi and I run Just Deliveries. Okay. We basically help restaurant chains with their last mile inventory logistics. Okay. So you carry food to the customer, we carry inventory to the restaurants. Sure. Since your topic is, about industry boundaries, do you ever see Swiggy going backwards, like helping in B2B logistics as well? And in general, any comments on this sector?
So quick answer to the question is yes. We actually have a team that actually has just started in late 2019 to help, and this came because the restaurants told us that you're anyway having full data on what we are selling, and therefore the inventory positions of atta, chal, double, all of that kind of stuff. So why don't we work it in a way that you're able to provide the back end? So we worked with a bunch of partners to launch something, and maybe offline I can connect you to the person in our team who does that.
Thank you for that last question, very pertinent. Thank you so much for being so patient, Vivek. I will just invite Professor Abbas Ali Gabula to come over and give you a small token of appreciation. It was really a fantastic session, everyone. We really lived up to the topic of this panel. We were going across boundaries. It was superlative. Thank you so much. A big round of applause, please, for all our panelists today, for this third lovely panel. That is Mr. Nishchay AG, Pulkit Trivedi. He's getting his little thing. Sir, for a picture, please.
Thank you, Nikhil. Thank you, Harish. Thank you, Vivek. Abbas, stay for a picture, please. Thank you all.